In this video, we'll talk about two topics. First is pneumoconiosis. The other name for this is occupational lung diseases. Second one is ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. Coming to the first topic at hand, which is pneumoconiosis. So pneumoconiosis is a group of disorders. So originally it was described as a non-neoplastic lung disorder reaction to inhalation of mineral dust only in the workplace. However, later on, organic and inorganic particulate material as well as chemical fumes and vapors were included in the classification. So classifying all the pneumoconiosis. So the first main heading is mineral dust. So only the important ones I'll be highlighting here. So pneumoconiosis due to coal dust is called anthracosis. Due to silica is silicosis. Due to asbestos is asbestosis. Due to beryllium is berylliosis. Due to iron oxide it's called siderosis. Due to barium sulfate is barytosis. Tin oxide is stanosis. Next one, due to organic dust. So mold hay causing pneumoconiosis is called farmer's lung. Due to bagasse, so bagasse is once sugarcane juice is extracted and whatever is left, right, all the fibrous kind of thing, so that is bagasse. So the disease is known as bagassosis. Then bird droppings, it's known as bird breeder's lung, also known as psittacosis, Psittacosis. Next is organic dust that induce asthma. So under this you have cotton known as bicynosis, red cedar dust causing asthma itself. Then the last part is pneumoconiosis induced by chemical fumes and vapors. So under this you have various presentations like bronchitis, asthma, pulmonary edema, ARDS, etc. And it is caused by fumes and vapors of nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, ammonia, benzene, etc. Coming to the pathogenesis of pneumoconiosis. Pneumoconiosis is a type of interstitial lung disease. So interstitium is that area of that tissue of the lung which helps support the other structures like alveolus, blood vessels, etc. This pneumoconiosis affects that interstitial tissue. The development of pneumoconiosis primarily depends on various factors. So let's have a look at those factors. So the first is amount of dust retained in the lung and in the airways. So this is about the concentration of the dust particle which invokes pneumoconiosis. So amount of dust retained in the lung and airways will be more only if the concentration of that particular dust or particle in the ambient air is more. So if a person is there in a place in which the concentration of that particular particle is more, then there are chances that he'll develop pneumoconiosis. So more the concentration of the particle in the air, more the chances of the person developing pneumoconiosis. The second factor is physical property of the particles. So the particles of the size 1 to 5 micron, so these are most likely to enter the small airways including alveoli and cause any disease there. So the particles which are bigger than 5 microns generally tend to get trapped in the mucociliary apparatus and they'll be expelled out. Thirdly, the particle solubility. So all those dangerous particles, if they are very small and they have high solubility, then the chances of them causing pneumoconiosis is very high and very rapid. Fourthly, it is possible additional effects of other irritants. For example, if a person who is already exposed to some of these dust particles, he is also a smoker, if he also happens to be a smoker, then the chances that the pneumoconiosis progresses will be at a much higher rate. So there are three important pneumoconiosis for you. So the first is coal workers pneumoconiosis, second one is silicosis, and the third one is asbestosis. So let us start with coal workers pneumoconiosis. So this is caused by inhalation of coal particles and other admixed forms of dust. And the disease itself has a very wide spectrum. So the disease can either be asymptomatic anthracosis, simple coal workers pneumoconiosis, or the end stage, which is progressive massive fibrosis or PMF. The other name for this is complicated coal workers pneumoconiosis. So firstly, it is asymptomatic anthracosis, secondly, simple coal workers pneumoconiosis, and thirdly, complicated coal workers pneumoconiosis. Sometimes it so happens that you may get some altered morphology. So then you have to suspect that the person is exposed to two types of dust particles, for example, coexisting silica exposure. Talking about the pathogenesis of coal workers pneumoconiosis, when the person inhales any of these particles, carbon particles, what happens is there are multiple macrophages both inside the alveolus as well as interstitium. They will go and engulf the carbon particles and bring them in their cytoplasm. Later on, this leads to a fibrogenic response, which is evident in later stages of the disease, which is progressive massive fibrosis. Coming to the morphology of coal workers pneumoconiosis, the initial most phase of the disease is called asymptomatic anthracosis, because the patient who has this will not have any symptoms, right? So this is seen in many people, specifically in smokers. Here what happens is all the carbon-laden macrophages, they organize themselves in lymphatic tissue around the bronchi. So that is what is seen in microscopy. Next in the spectrum of coal workers disease was simple coal workers pneumoconiosis. So here you see coal macules and coal nodules in well aerated portions of lungs, so which are the apical areas, upper lobes or upper portions of other lobes. So coal macules are 1 to 2 millimeter in diameter, whereas coal nodules are slightly larger. Microscopy wise, macules just have carbon laden macrophages, whereas nodules will have carbon laden macrophages along with the fibrin meshwork. So here's an image of simple coal workers pneumoconiosis. You're able to see multiple black patches here. So microscopically, if you analyze all those black patches, you'll see that they are nothing but collections of carbon laden macrophages. So this is the microscopic image of simple coal workers pneumoconiosis. You are able to see the dark pigment, right? So they are obscuring the cells which have eaten them up. So you are not able to make out the macrophage morphology properly because carbon is covering the macrophage. So the severest form of morphological form of coal workers pneumoconiosis is progressive massive fibrosis or complicated coal workers pneumoconiosis. So here the pathogenesis is the maximum, which is to say fibrogenic potential is too much. So grossly you see multiple intensely blackened scars, very large scars of 1 to 10 centimeter, and microscopically you will see dense collagen, which is nothing but scar, as well as pigment, which is carbon, and central necrosis sometimes. This is a gross image of complicated coal workers pneumoconiosis or progressive massive fibrosis. So here you can see blackish pigment along with sort of contraction. That contraction is because of fibrosis. In this image of progressive massive fibrosis, you can see one large pigmented spot and the entire thing is fibrosed. Coming to the clinical course of coal workers disease, so usually follows a benign course, which is to say it takes a long time to progress into progressive massive fibrosis, and it is seen in less than 10% of the cases, and only if progressive massive fibrosis involves a significant portion of the lung, then only you will see a compromise in oxygenation of RBCs. Sometimes you may be able to see pulmonary hypertension or right ventricular course late in this disease. The next occupational lung disease or pneumoconiosis we'll be talking about is silicosis. So silicosis is a common lung disease caused by inhalation of crystalline silicon dioxide. So silicon dioxide, the name given is silica. Most common type of fibrogenic silica is quartz. So whichever industry involves mining of quartz or making of quartz, so that industry workers will be prone to develop silicosis. Examples include metal casting work, sand blasting, stone cutting, etc. Coming to the pathogenesis of silicosis, again the similar route what you saw in coal workers disease, the same thing is followed here. As soon as the person inhales silica particles, they will be phagocytosed by macrophages. Now the silica particles are in the cytoplasm of the macrophages. Once that happens, release of various inflammatory mediators will happen, which is interleukin 1 and 18, and the work of this interleukin 1 and 18 is to produce fibrosis. Morphology wise, in early stages there will be small pale to blackened nodules in lymph nodes as well as parenchyma of the lungs. As disease progresses, all these small nodules fuse with each other to form larger nodules, and some scarring also will be there because interleukins caused fibrosis, right? Later on, eventually, some nodules may have central softening and cavitation. So it was assumed initially that tuberculosis led to this central cavitation, and the disease was given a name silicotuberculosis. However, it's a very controversial topic because bacillus was not able to be isolated in cases of silicotuberculosis. So this is a gross image wherein there is a thin slice of lung and the arrow is pointing to a particular lesion which you can see, which is arranged as onion peel appearance, right? Onion peel like arrangement is there, and color is a bit brownish. So this is another image of silicosis. Here you are able to see one bluish portion. So that bluish portion is nothing but fibrosis, and behind that bluish portion you can see some brownish areas as well, right? So those are also caused by silicosis. X-ray wise, if silicosis involves hilar lymph nodes, then sheets of calcification may occur in the lymph node. So in X-ray you may be able to see that as eggshell calcification. Progressive massive fibrosis in silicosis occurs at a later stage when multiple of these nodules of silicosis coalesce together. Microscopy wise, there is central scar, and around the scar you will be able to see macrophages in the cytoplasm of which there is silica particles. And if you polarize the microscope light, then these silica particles will be birefringent. So here's the image of microscopy. Centrally you are able to see whorled pattern, right? So that is nothing but the collagen, and around it, if you go to a higher power in this image, then maybe you'll be able to see the macrophages with silica ladon in the cytoplasm. Clinical course of silicosis is such that disease usually manifests late in the course, which is to say only after progressive massive fibrosis comes and there is a loss of certain functionality of the lung. And it is said that increased susceptibility to tuberculosis is there. However, I already told you that in cases of silicotuberculosis, in many cases, tuberculous bacilli have not been identified. Then the risk of developing carcinoma of lung is said to be twice as in normal population in cases of silicosis. Next, moving on to the third disease, which is asbestos related disorder. Unlike the previous two pneumoconiosis you saw, asbestos gives rise to numerous diseases. So that is why it is asbestos related disorders. So asbestos again, it has something to do with silica, carbon basically. So use of asbestos is tightly restricted in many developed countries because asbestos is known to cause a tumor known as mesothelioma. It's a malignant disease. The spectrum of asbestosis includes localized fibrous plaques in the pleura or diffuse pleural fibrosis. There could be pleural effusions, parenchymal interstitial fibrosis, which is what we are talking about in this section, asbestosis. Then there is lung carcinoma, CA lung itself, as well as mesotheliomas, pleural mesotheliomas. Then it can also give rise to diseases of other organs like laryngeal, ovarian, and other neoplasms. So classical use of asbestos in India, like all of us know, would be asbestos sheet perhaps, right? So here is an image of that asbestos sheet. So presently these are being replaced by all plastic sheets. Coming to the pathogenesis of asbestosis, you need to know two important forms. So the first is chrysolite serpentine form. So the fibers of asbestos in the serpentine form is sort of wavy. That is why it can easily be removed out from the respiratory tract. The second form is amphibole form. So amphibole form is very stiff and straight. So that is why if it lodges itself in smaller airways, it is invariably going to cause a disease. Once asbestos particles, fibers are lodged in the airway, again the same mechanism is there. Macrophages will come and eat them up. And once they do that, they'll secrete some pro-inflammatory and pro-fibrogenic cytokines, which will give rise to the disease. So coming to the morphology of asbestosis itself, so there is diffuse interstitial fibrosis with asbestos bodies under microscopy. So let's describe these asbestos bodies, what they are first. So these asbestos bodies are golden brown fusiform or beaded rods with a translucent center. So they look basically like dumbbells. However, some of the asbestos bodies can just have one end of the dumbbell along with the middle bar, right? The reason why these asbestos bodies are golden brown in color is because of getting coated by iron containing material. Further, in course of disease, there will be fibrosis around the conducting portion of airway, which includes respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts, alveolar sacs, and individual alveoli. Because of so much fibrosis, what happens is there is distortion of lung architecture, leading to large air spaces enclosed within thick fibrous sacs. And these thick fibrous sacs within which multiple airways are there, right? It goes on to give an appearance of honeycomb. So that is why it is called honeycombed appearance. Here's a microscopic image of asbestos body. So in the middle you are able to see a brownish thing which has an expanded end on the left side, and in between there's a translucent area. So that is the asbestos body appearance. Coming to other manifestations of asbestos. So till now we discussed asbestosis. So some other manifestations are also there. So the first is pleural plaques. So these pleural plaques are the most common manifestations of asbestos exposure. They are well circumscribed plaques with dense collagen or scar. And most of the times they are calcified. If they are calcified, they can be visualized under X-ray. These pleural plaques, however, do not contain asbestos body like what you saw in the lung. and these pleural plaques commonly occur in people who are exposed to asbestos. They are hardly seen in any person who is not exposed to asbestos. So this is the chest X-ray image of pleural plaques, wherein you are able to see multiple opacities. So these are all pleural plaques which have been calcified. If you look at the shape of each of these plaques, I have put a reference image on the right side. So that is the holly leaf. So something used for Christmas decoration. So each of those plaques looks like a holly leaf. So the characteristic sign told in X-ray is holly leaf sign. It is not holy leaf sign, it is holly leaf sign. Here's the gross image of pleura that has been stripped off from the lung, and clearly you're able to see yellowish areas. So that is the calcified plaque you're seeing there. Coming to the clinical course of asbestosis, dyspnea on exertion is usually the first symptom. Later on, the patient can even have dyspnea at rest, and there can be cough associated with production of sputum. So till now we discussed pneumoconiosis, certain general features as well as the classification, and next we went on and discussed three important pneumoconiosis. The first was coal workers disease, the second was silicosis, and the third one was asbestosis. The second topic for this video is acute respiratory distress syndrome or ARDS. So some definitions we'll learn about first. So the first is acute lung injury or ALI or non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. That is the other name for it. So this is abrupt onset of significant hypoxia and bilateral pulmonary infiltrates in the absence of cardiac failure. So that is why it's called non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. Second definition is ARDS. So ARDS is a manifestation of severe acute lung injury. So the third one is diffuse alveolar damage. So diffuse alveolar damage is the basic mechanism which causes ARDS. So although all these three things are different, they can be used interchangeably. There are multiple names for ARDS. Some common names include adult respiratory failure, shock lung, acute alveolar injury, or traumatic wet lungs. The findings of ARDS are similar to a disease that is observed in infants known as hyaline membrane disease. The other name for hyaline membrane disease is infant respiratory distress syndrome. So don't get confused with hyaline membrane disease and adult respiratory distress syndrome. ARDS has numerous causes. Some common causes I have included in this list. So first is infections. It could either be sepsis or diffuse pulmonary infections like tuberculosis. Next is physical injuries, which includes head injury, drowning, burns, etc. Then there are irritants, which include oxygen toxicity, smoke, ammonia toxicity. Then there are chemicals like acetyl salicylate and heroin overdose. Then blood-related disorders such as disseminated intravascular coagulation and also massive and multiple transfusions. Then there are other diseases like pancreatitis. So a few of these causes, please remember, will be helpful to list out in the exam. So this is the simple pathogenic mechanism of ARDS. So there is endothelial activation, then adhesion and extravasation of neutrophils from the capillaries. Then lastly, there is accumulation of intravascular fluid and formation of hyaline membranes. There is one more step after these three steps. However, it is very rarely seen, so I have not included it here. So here's the diagram of pathogenesis of ARDS. So the round thing that you see at the top is basically the alveolus. Within alveolus, you are able to see the lining by pneumocytes, type 1 and type 2 pneumocytes, as well as in the center of the alveolus, there is a macrophage. M I have labeled it. and beneath the alveolus I have drawn a blood capillary. So first step in ARDS, what happens is numerous risk factors. So these are the risk factors which you saw enlisted under causes, right? So because of those risk factors, primarily there is a damage to the type 1 and type 2 pneumocytes. When there is damage to type 1 and type 2 pneumocytes, this is sensed by the alveolar macrophages, and alveolar macrophages start releasing what is known as TNF, tumor necrosis factor. So the tumor necrosis factor will go and affect the blood vessel endothelium and make it activated. So once blood vessel endothelium is activated, it acts as a sign for neutrophil to get adherent to the blood vessel wall first, and later on go through the wall and enter the alveolus. The first step you saw damage to alveolar epithelium. In the second step, macrophages got activated and they released TNF. In the third step, there was endothelial activation, and in the fourth step, there was neutrophil migration into the alveolus. This is the second part of pathogenesis. So once neutrophil has entered the alveolus, it secretes various things like MMIF. So MMIF is macrophage motility inhibiting factor. Second one is cytokines. Third one is protease, and fourth one is reactive oxygen species. So cytokines and MMIF ensure that more and more inflammatory cells are getting into the alveolus and they stay there. Protease and ROS, reactive oxygen species, they make sure that there is further damage of the alveolar epithelium. So this is a vicious cycle. So more neutrophils and macrophages, more pneumocyte damage, and more endothelial activation. Because of type 2 pneumocyte damage, what happens is, basically you know that type 2 pneumocytes are responsible for secretion of surfactant in the lung, right? Because of their destruction, altered surfactant is released, which hangs like a membrane within the alveolus. And along with that membrane, you also see certain dead and necrosed pneumocytes. Then because of endothelial activation and retraction between the endothelial cells, what happens is fluid from the blood vessels enter into the alveoli. So these are the morphological changes that you see in ARDS. I had left out one part of the pathogenesis in the previous slides, right? One of the previous slides. So that last part was resolution. So for resolution to happen, macrophages should remove all the fluid and other debris within the alveoli, and later scarring also should have happened. However, this is rare and patients usually succumb to the disease. Coming to the morphology of ARDS. So this is classified into acute stage and organizing stage. In acute stage, grossly the lungs are heavy, red and boggy, and if you cut the lung, some fluid will ooze out of the lung. So basically that is why pulmonary edema is given in the name, NCPE, non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema. Microscopy wise, there is diffuse alveolar damage. So the lining of alveoli, you will be able to see necrosed pneumocytes. Then there is fluid in alveoli, and alveolar walls are lined with hyaline membranes. So the altered surfactant released by the damaged type 2 pneumocytes, so that give rise to hyaline membrane. The second is the organizing stage. So the organizing stage represents the resolution in pathogenesis. This is rarely seen. However, when you do see the resolution in microscopy, what happens is type 2 pneumocytes, which act as stem cell, they proliferate, then granulation tissue formation occurs, then macrophages have eaten up all the debris, then later on there is scarring of alveolar septa and alveolar walls. In some cases, there will be superimposed bronchopneumonia. Patients will develop superimposed bronchopneumonia. So this is the microscopic image of ARDS. So the tissue that you see here is lungs, and all those hollow spaces that you see are all alveoli. If you observe the margins of the alveoli, there are thick membranes that cover the lining of the alveoli. So those thick membranes are hyaline membranes. They also have necrotic debris of pneumocytes and inflammatory cells.